Tuesday.
Good morning to you. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland, and we are out and about this morning at the Port Glasgow Community Campus as part of our education special week of programmes. And the big issue in schools right now is mobile phone use. Speaking last December, Cabinet Secretary for Education Jenny Gilruth said any head teacher who wants to ban mobile phones in classrooms would have her full support.
I know a number of schools just now in Scotland are piloting a ban, and I've heard anecdotally that's working very well. I want to empower our head teachers to use that power as they see fit.
Well, some schools are piloting a ban, but most aren't. Do you think that smartphones have a place in schools? Give us a call. 08085 92 95 00 is the number. Coming up, we'll be discussing another hot topic in Scotland's schools right now.
I've also been pushed and fallen backwards. I'll go home, and even when I'm in bed, I'll be thinking about what happened or what might happen tomorrow.
Well, that's one teacher from Aberdeen describing the effect that disruptive pupil behaviour has on her. We'll be finding out what the situation is here at Port Glasgow. And what about out-of-school hours?
There's a whole range of different activities that your child could take up that's going to help them explore who they are as a person, but also get to develop socially and meet new people in their community.
We'll find out what extracurricular activities are on offer. We're also looking at how our schools will need to adapt to the climate emergency, and how much does catchment area matter?
The Sunday Times Schools Guide says that Jordan Hill in Glasgow has been named the top state secondary in Scotland.
Well, property expert Brian Gilmore will be giving us the lowdown on the link between schools and house prices. And despite our change of location, we will still have our Name the Place quiz. Nothing shifts that at all. First clue just after the phone in.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Apparently. So, as I say, we're at the community campus of Port Glasgow High School, St Stephen's High School and Craigmarlow School. You might actually have heard a bell there just to make sure that we are authentically here. We're not pretending. But I might even ask our audience here to give me a bit of noise just so that I can prove to people that we are actually out in location. 1, 2, 3. Oh, thank you. Don't let me down. Excellent. As I say, we're going to have a virtual guided tour a little bit later on of the campus. This is part of our week-long look at the current state of education in Scotland. I think, though, we'll obviously find out a bit more detail. I think the smartphone policy here is that young people can have phones with them. They need to be switched off in learning time. I'm looking at Luke to my left-hand side. Am I right here? I'm getting this right. Unless they're asked to use it for a specific purpose. Is that right, Luke?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right, good. Elsewhere in the country, however, a small number of schools are severely limiting the use of smartphones during the school day, something that Will or Ewing from Smartphone Free Childhood is campaigning for. We'll hear from Will in just a minute. But we do want to hear from you at home. Do smartphones, in your opinion, have a place in schools? 08085 92 95 00 is the number. Should we embrace smartphones into school life or place limitations on them? And what would that look like? You can text us on 80295. Tell us what your school's policy is and how you feel about it. As you heard there, Education Minister Jenny Gilruth says that she would back any school which decides to ban them, but it is not government policy. Do you think it should be or not? Do smartphones have a place in schools? That's the question this morning. 08085 92 95 00. You can text us on 80295. Let's speak first of all to everything is smaller when we're here because we're all on tiny wee laptops. So I'm peering at things. Forgive me if I seem to be doing that. We have with us Will or Ewing, who is the head of schools working group at Smartphone Free Childhood. Morning to you, Will.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you're very much campaigning to reduce or perhaps eradicate the use of smartphones in schools, am I right?
That's right. Okay, yes.
On what basis, and why do you think that's important?
Well, smartphones have been really a blight on children's lives in schools. They've been linked with all sorts of harms, with lack of exercise, with distraction, with mental health issues. We just don't see that they've got a role to play in schools. Most parents want their kids to have a phone only to get to and from school. But the problem is that these devices are linked to the internet and therefore to social media. and all the sort of ravages of social media in teenage lives then get transported to school. So, yeah, we're really keen to support any school that wants to minimise or eradicate.
I mean, to say that they have been a blight and they've impacted on mental health of pupils, I mean, what evidence are you going on there, Will?
Well, there's a book that has recently been published, Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, and he's been looking at the evidence for the impact of smartphones on teenagers across the world, not just America, but in Europe as well. And he and his research partners are pretty clear that when the smartphone sort of hit ubiquitous use in teenagers from 2012, that's when you see a big downturn in lots of the indicators for well-being and mental health in young people. So you start to see a rise of teenage suicides. You begin to see a rise of reports of self-harm in schools, in young people.
Yeah. There could, of course, be other factors in there, couldn't there, in that change in sense of well-being.
Absolutely.
Well, listen. Well, you know, this is our discussion this morning. We're keen to get people's thoughts on it. Please give us a ring, 08085 92 95 00. You can text us on 80295. We'll be speaking to Tanya Davey, the head teacher of Kilgraston School, and they have indeed introduced a virtual ban on smartphones, certainly for the bulk of the day. And I'm sure there's some people who would favour that move. Just to find out the policy here at Port Glasgow and St Stephen's, and we will, as I say, find out a little bit more about the school. It's a shared campus. It's quite an unusual situation here, which is a very interesting one. But just focusing right now on smartphones, I've got Lisa Fitzharris, who's the Deputy Head Teacher from Port Glasgow High School, with me. Morning, Lisa. Good morning. And also Robert Carroll, who's the Deputy Head Teacher of St Stephen's High School. Hi, Robert. So the policy here, Lisa, is what?
The policy here is that we ask for young people to have their mobile phones off and in their bags whilst they are in classes. There is no limit on the use that young people have of their mobile phones at social times. We do acknowledge that for some parents, as previously kind of referenced, you know, they do find a kind of security almost in young people having mobile phones to make their way to and from school. But certainly in classes, we look for those to be off. However, you will hear a bit later on this morning from one of my colleagues who, you know, within the classroom, we do sometimes use it as a learning tool. For some young people who have additional support needs, it has been proven beneficial for them to access their learning through using wireless keyboards and things via their mobile phone.
It all sounds great in principle, Lisa, but, you know, are you saying that young people will never, and I'm looking at Luke and Olivia on my left-hand side here, you know, never sneak a look at their phone when they're in class? Is it never disruptive in class? Is it rigorously enforced?
No, it can be very challenging. There's that temptation, and it's a balance that, as a school, you know, we work to try and get correct in terms of young people who may need that to support them in their learning, but also really managing that within the classroom and
so would the simplest thing to be just not to have it? You know, and so then you wouldn't have to be managing it in the classroom. You wouldn't be having to deal with situations which, you know, I'm sure this school is no different from any other school in the country in terms of the temptation that we all have as adults, far less as kids. I mean, my goodness, I wish I could put mine in the freezer because I'll give it to Luke, actually. I'm terrible for looking at my phone all the time. Would it be better just not to have that temptation?
Potentially, yeah, and it's something that, you know, we continue to monitor and we continue to kind of weigh up the kind of advantages and disadvantages, and we really do try and promote it on an individual basis. And if a young person is misusing that, then our policy would allow us to then ensure that the young person doesn't have access to it throughout the lesson. And obviously contact with home and things is something that we look to kind of look for that support as well. And you know, parents do have that kind of jurisdiction over young people and giving them the phone and really kind of liaising on an individual basis to try and...
Sorry, Lisa, I'm just going to turn to Luke and Olivia on this side. Do you both have mobile phones, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And what do you think of the school policy then, Olivia?
I think it's very helpful. I think it's based on a level of trust, like if you're trusted to have it and if you're trusted to use it in class. And of course, like, people will break that, but I think it's always a boundary.
Right, OK. Did you hear Will there saying that he felt, over the last 10 years that it's had a really negative effect on young people's mental health, leading to all sorts of problems and, he would rather limit the use. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think he is right, but it's also, he's not a teenager, and he's not, that sounds really rude. He's not,
No, it's not, it's factual.
He's not grown up, like, with a phone or being in this kind of environment, and that's completely based on research. And if you were to Google it, it'll give you really horrible facts and tell you the bad bit of it. And it's honestly, I think it's really good. Like, I phone my mum every day in school. I'm guilty for that. We play Blue Kit and Kahoot, stuff like that in class. And you see people, like, using keyboards, like Miss Fitzharris said, and I think it's honestly really good to have in school.
Well, let me bring you back in, because, it's no insult for Olivia to say to you that you're not a teenager. It's a fact. Do we not need to educate our young people in technology? Do we not need to help them incorporate this technology into their lives?
It's such a good question, and I think you need to really work out just what the level of harm is for these phones, and that the fact that they've been really designed to addict and to distract our young people, I think places them in a level of risk nearer to other addictive substances or devices like drugs or smoking or alcohol, or things that we just don't give.
You would put them in the same category as drugs, smoking and alcohol?
In the same category of potential risks. I mean, these kids are getting on average 250 notifications a day. The idea that they're going to be at school and not be able to be completely distracted by these things is just...
I'm going to go back to Olivia here, if you don't mind, because her eyebrows crossed when you said that. Olivia?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, we always focus on the bad things, and as much as there are, like, harmful things that can be done with a phone, it's not always, like, not everyone's gonna go that far, unlock that. And if you think it's an obsession like drugs, then I think you need to maybe do a bit more research, because I would never categorise them as the same thing, because I think drugs and alcohol and things like that is such a serious topic, whereas a phone you can play Candy Crush on. I'm really sorry, but I completely disagree with you.
What do you think, Luke?
I agree with Olivia. I don't think drugs and alcohol is anywhere near phones, because drugs and alcohol can do really serious damage to you, whereas phones, they're not as bad, but as Olivia was saying, they can still do damage. But no, I don't think they're as bad as drugs and alcohol. No chance. Do
you try and kind of manage your use of your phone? I mean, they are addictive, aren't they? I mean, I've jokingly gave you mine, but honestly, I do think I use mine too much.
Yeah.
I mean, are you the same?
Yeah. I think I could cut down on my phone a couple hours a week, because I think I'm on it too much, and I need to go outside a bit more. except from football. But yeah, I think I do need to cut down on my screen time.
But you are aware of it. So would it help you then if the school said, right, OK, you can't have your phone during the day between 9 and 3:30?
I think it would, but at the same time, in class, like, we do Blue Kits and Kahoots, which is quite enjoyable.
You'll have to tell me what that is. What's that?
Oh, it's like, so a teacher creates a game. It's like a quiz, and then you all log on your phones.
All right, OK.
It's really enjoyable, and it makes the class more fun, and you're still learning.
Right, OK, so that's a positive use of the phone, yeah. Really interesting discussion. 0808 592 95 00. We've got Paul in Stirling. Morning, Paul.
Morning, Kay.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic this morning because the sun's out for a change.
It is indeed, yeah. I can see it coming through the skylights here. I think we might have a tiny delay on this line just because we are out and about today at the Port Glasgow Community Campus, but I hope everyone will bear with us for that. So a really interesting exchange there, don't you think, Paul, between Will and Olivia and Luke here?
Yeah, I'm more on the old codger side of this discussion, because I think that younger people obviously don't have the experience that elder people have in terms of wisdom and experience. But I think that younger people have become slaves to the big tech corporations because they seem to be, if they don't have their mobile phone, something's wrong, something's missing. And the contributors are saying a bit of sense, but the amount of young people that are suffering mental health issues, that sort of stuff, because everything seems to be on social media, everything's on video, and when you're in school, you're supposed to be able to concentrate.
With respect, are we not just trotting out cliches here?
No,
you know, I mean, young people these days. I mean, I've just spoken to Luke and Olivia. What age are you, Luke?
12.
12. What age are you, Olivia?
14.
I mean, two incredibly articulate people here representing their point of view.
Absolutely, but the problem is that the people in the Scottish Government, the people in the Education Authority, the people who are looking at the bigger picture are seeing consequences of mobile phone use. And one of the problems is, and they might agree with it, they might not, but it's okay if they're having a mobile phone in class and what have you. But I say to your researcher there, we've had 2 young people come into the place of work, have had to leave their job. They've had to leave their job because they could not function without their mobile phone attached to their desk or next to them. They couldn't do it. It's a problem. It's a problem for employers. So people need to be able to recognise that there's a place and time for everything in moderation. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, and this is maybe the minority, but there's a lot of young people lack interpersonal skills, are unable to communicate in an effective manner by not having the interpersonal skills because they've been brought up looking at a screen 24 hours a day, getting bombarded, and they can't sleep at night.
I mean,
they're tired
I know, Paul, and listen, I respect your view. Obviously, it's a phone-in, and we're asking people to come in with their opinions. But again, I'm going back to my 2 on the side. Just generally, we're maybe going off schools. You'll have heard that quite a lot, Olivia, the young people these days. How do you feel about that?
Well, I want to touch on what you said with mental health. We actually make it a big thing in our school to kind of focus and help children's mental health. And we have posters about our campus with this anonymous website that you can get on your phone called Kooth. And I've not actually seen it myself, but you can go on, you can get a help anonymously, and I actually think that's one of the good things with your phone. You can be anonymous and get help.
Mm-hmm. And the sort of general feeling that many older people have that young people these days lack interpersonal skills, you know, just the inability just to chat to people because they've always got their head in the phone. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there are some things that we can control about that because I know my phone personally, you can get a screen time and there are other ways to get around it if you really think that you're on your phone that much. Okay, I'll get a screen time. This can turn off when I need it to. It's things like that I think there's always a way around it, and I don't think people focus on that enough.
Yeah. Let me come to Robert Carroll, who's the Deputy Head of St Stephen's High School. You have delivered me 2-star pupils here. I mean, Luke and Olivia are presenting themselves incredibly well. But we have to be realistic, you know, for many other young people and adults, but we're talking about young people today. It is a struggle in order to kind of control phone use, and there can be damaging effects of it. And you know, whether or not or whoever can give us concrete evidence that there's been damage to mental health through mobile phone use, it is a real concern, isn't it? And in which case, is there an argument to say you could help them by saying not between 9 and half 3, just to have that time away from it?
Well, Kate, our policy is the same as Lisa at Port Glasgow High School, in that young people should have their phones off or in silent and in bags during class time.
But it gives you something else to manage as teachers, doesn't it?
It does, but we promote responsible use in school. Therefore, when young people at the end of the periods, at interval and lunchtime, they can use their phones. I think it would be extremely difficult to manage to stop young people having their devices. I think as well we always talk about schools and what schools can do, but as adults as well, you know, adults spend an awful lot of time on their phones, as do young people, and young people are very tech savvy. I think that they, when it comes to using them in classes, teachers using them for research or for, as young people have described, they're using them for quizzes, etc. They can be a real positive and have a positive impact in classes as well. I think Lisa also touched on young people and Olivia mentioned it as well, young people having contact with parents and families and their friends as well during the course of the school day. I think that can help to decrease anxiety, and anxiety in young people is a real increasing trend. We talked about the supports.
Yeah, the other side of that is, someone might argue, it increases anxiety because, you know, and we'll go back to it, I'm sure you were never in touch with your mum when you were at school back in the day, you know, because we matter, are we creating anxiety or are we alleviating anxiety? I mean, that's another...
Perhaps, I think spending an awful lot of time on your phone, absolutely, and young people, you know, have access to, you know, Snapchat, TikTok, etc., where they're in communication with young people who they know, young people who they don't know throughout the day. But as I say, promoting responsible use during the course of the school day means that when they're in class, those 50-minute periods that they're in class, they are not on their phones.
Okay. Well, you were saying it would be difficult to manage. We've actually got Tanya Davies, who's the head teacher of Kilgraston, and they have more or less taken out phone use. So we'll speak to Tanya in a second. We also have with us Henry Hepburn, the editor of TES Scotland, because I'm interested to know what evidence there is in terms of the impact on young people's well-being of mobile phone use is. And we've also got calls coming in. We've got James in Bearsden who wants to speak to us as well. But let me remind you of the number. It's 08085 92 95. You can text us on 80295. I think we'll speak to Tanya after this.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing that lasts in the power. I've been in my hand.
Somewhere out there's a kid crying, "Show me a consonant. Teach me pi r squared." Minds like thirsty little sponges, just waiting to soak up knowledge.
Our assistant principal is still missing.
Oh, brother, 24 carats, $24.
Oh, no thank you, I already have him. I know it's deaf. What's whack? What's straight up booty?
How was your first day?
Not bad.
Money and the power.
Now, this is your textbook for the semester. They open like this.
You know, you're different from everybody else. I mean, most of the boys I know just want to stare at girls' breasts. You know what I mean?
Sorry, what? Don't you think the kids would enjoy a nice song with a melody?
What you got, Holmes?
Like a rhinestone cowboy. I think I may be reaching them.
It is 9:22. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. We are at the shared community campus in Port Glasgow, St Stephen's High School and Port Glasgow High School, and Craig Marlock. And yeah, really interesting discussion this morning we're having about smartphone use. But still to come this morning.
Particularly in a system where with 32 local authorities, there is so much diversity in size and scale and capacity and quality that government at a national level needs to have those levers to make change happen.
That's former Labour First Minister Lord Jack McConnell there. He's going to be joining us later on this morning as we hear all about how joint campuses, like where we are broadcasting from today, how they work. And stay tuned, of course, for our first clue in the Name the Place quiz.
This is Education Week.
Right, we're talking about smartphone use this morning in schools and whether or not they have a place in schools. We've spoken to Will Orr Ewing from the Smartphone Free Childhood. He's very concerned about the use of smartphones across the board with young people and thinks that schools should ban them altogether. Very concerned about the impact on young people's well-being and mental health. I've been speaking to Olivia and Luke, our pupils here at the campus, who have been putting forward a really interesting perspective, you know, from people of their age group, and absolutely acknowledging that perhaps use their phones a wee bit too much, and talking about different methods that you can employ, sort of screen time limiters, etc., and some of the positive benefits of smartphones rather than focusing on the negative. Paul and Sterling was very much of the opinion that, and he did say himself he was an old codger, but that he would share that Will's view that he was concerned. And having spoken to Robert Carroll's as deputy head teacher at St Stephen's High School here, and Lisa Fitzharris, his colleague, saying that the policy is that they very much incorporate to a certain extent phones. No social use of phones in class. They should be in the bag, should be on silent, unless, of course, the teacher asks the young people to use them for a specific purpose. But Robert also said there he felt it would be very difficult to manage to ban them altogether. So let me bring in Tanya Davey, head teacher at Kilgraston. Hi there, Tanya.
Good morning, Kay.
Good morning. So you are kind of in the minority of schools, I would think, in Scotland who has got... Well, tell us the extent of your ban, per se.
Our ban is when pupils arrive at school, the juniors in the primary school, they hand theirs in at the main office and they collect them then at the end of the day. Our seniors put them in their lockers, and we're also a boarding school, so boarders don't bring their phones down to school.
Right. And is it difficult to manage?
Well, I will be honest, it's been in school since 2018 and I joined 2 years ago. So I came in where it was the norm. And I was actually quite interested to see what this norm looked like. It just isn't an issue. You know, we have teenagers. Teenagers will push the boundaries. And yes, there'll be the odd time where I will catch somebody on a phone that should have been in their locker. I ask for it to go back to their locker, or it's moved and left at reception to be collected. So I'm not living in a utopia where it doesn't get stretched. However, we don't have them in classrooms. We do have resources where pupils bring their device in, or we might have a device. So like Luke and Olivia were mentioning about, you know, some people might need support. We engage, say, our learning support department to make sure we have all things in place where a pupil can access the support they needed. Can I just say, before I go further, is Luke and Olivia, you are doing an amazing job at representing the pupil voice. And I admire, and I was actually quite taken aback when I heard your age, because I do think it is important to hear what you have to say. And as a parent and also a teacher of 3 decades, it is easy for me to say, well, this is what we think is best for you. So we do need to keep that platform alive where we hear both sides. But what I think is very important that was kind of related to was the drug, the addictive nature of it. That is what concerns me. I don't think we'd be having this conversation if society as a whole weren't concerned. We wouldn't be discussing at Parliament why we should potentially ban them or consider limited use. We recognise there is an issue, and that is the adult impact. I believe something like if we knew the damage sugar does, would we have allowed it as freely then when it was first? You know, we are in charge. On my watch, I don't want future generations to be impacted on something that I could have helped prevent, or can't stand by and see it happen.
Well, just a couple of questions then, Tanya, and I appreciate that this ban was in place at the school before you arrived, but, I mean, have you been able to report positive benefits?
Yes. What I have are pupils who are very engaged. It's simple things like how they converse with us as adults and with each other. It isn't total silence. It is in full engagement when you see them down at break or at lunch at tables. They're chatting and they're not scrolling through everything they've missed in between classes. they are actually engaging, and it brings them back into that social aspect of what's really important at school, what we missed when we didn't have face-to-face during COVID, all of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously they don't have phones, so by necessity, you know, they're going to have to do that. But we can't necessarily assume that here at a school like this, whereby you are able to use your phones at break times and things, that it's dead silent and everyone has got their face in their phone. Or is that the case, Olivia?
It is not the case at all. When you walk through the canteen, you might see people on their phones, but you always just see like this big kind of vibrant room where there's always going to be some sort of conversation. Trust me, it's very noisy. But like personally for me, I sit in music and it's never quiet in there. Like as much as we can use our phones, we might be taking pictures, we might be like making memories. I think that's always a good thing. But there's always some sort of conversation. It's never dead quiet.
I mean, Tanya, have you asked your pupils what they think?
Yes, I mean, they respect it. They know it's a rule because, you know, pupils have to accept rules for us to be able to work together. They don't miss it because most of them now have been in the school since that ban, if you like, or lack of use of phones was in place. So it's a norm for them. They do go on them as
But because they don't miss it doesn't mean they're the better for it, necessarily.
Not the best. But what are they missing out on by not being on them?
Well, yeah, no, I guess.
You know,
are they missing out on anything, Olivia?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just know like we have a family group chat and we always message in it like every day because I've got a twin brother in this year, and we message on it every day. We like to keep in contact on that, and I guess like sometimes people just need a bit of quiet time. They don't always want to speak to someone, and sometimes your phone comes in handy for that. Like you just might want to sit even in a group but not be in contact with anyone, and your phone's always good for that. You can just like have wind down time, as people would call it, because sometimes people just, it gets overwhelming if you've constantly got to talk, and sometimes there's genuinely nothing to talk about.
I want to talk about what evidence there is out there, and I know Henry Hepburn is going to be able to help us with that, but we've got Paul from East Wren on the line, and I believe, Paul, and I'm sorry, I'm having to squint at my laptop, it's so small, I believe you're a retired teacher, is that right? Morning to you.
Good morning, Kay, that's correct, yeah. Retired very recently, and I miss
Well, you getting nostalgic here?
You know, I'm raging actually at some of the comments this morning. I felt rage at my blood. Heart's pounding here because I supported young people with dyslexia for about 20 years, and Olivia's hit the nail on the head there about contacting your mum or your dad, because young people with dyslexia can experience really, really strong emotional distress when they go into schools. Because they quite often can't read worksheets, or there's a substitute teacher doesn't know they've got dyslexia and stuff. And the first thing they want to do is be in contact with their mum, and quite often that's very difficult as a teacher. And that is, well done, Olivia, for pointing that out, is what I wanted to say at the start. But my point was mainly about dyslexia, because I've started doing wee podcasts for a thing called Glad Radio in the South Side, and I'm talking about school days. And I spoke to a person who just left school, well, actually was 31 years old and doing really well for himself, called Jordan, with dyslexia. And he said to me, why do we not allow a mobile phone in a classroom when it's one of the most powerful learning tools? You can use it as a calculator. He went for 7 years in primary school, couldn't do his times tables, the staff are brilliant in primary schools at supporting young people with dyslexia, still couldn't do his tables. Got to the maths class, no, you're not using a calculator, you know, so that's one use. But there are so many other uses for a mobile phone educationally.
But I suppose you could say, though, Paul, I mean, if a young person needs a special piece of kit in order to learn, then perhaps that should be supplied by the school and used where appropriate, rather than saying, right, everybody has a mobile phone, which, yes, can be used for good reasons, but also we know, and we can't be naive about this, can also be used for less positive reasons, negative reasons, or whatever. So
of course it can. Of course it can, Kay. Totally agree with that, and I experienced that. I was supporting mainly kids who'd been couldn't get into the room because of the challenging behaviour and stuff. And yeah, they did want to use their phone, and quite often they were taking photographs. Can I give one example? There was one young person very recently, and that's in 2024. What she said was she went to her maths class. Okay, Glasgow City Council are supplying iPads to every young person, as far as I'm aware. Don't quote me on that. But this young person, she went to a maths class. She couldn't do the maths problems that she had in front of her. I'm not saying that might have been for various reasons. Maybe she got in, she wasn't ready to learn, stuff like that. But what she said she did, and I took her word for this, and I believed her. She said she photographed the worksheets from the book. She sent them to her mum, who was at work. Her mum did the answers for her, and she copied the answers. She photographed the answers, sent the answer, and then the young person did the answers in the jotter. Now, if that isn't using your mobile phone as a tool, then and being motivated to use it as a tool for education, I don't know what is. But
getting your mum to do your homework.
Yeah, for that young person in that situation, being stressed, really stressed, out of her head, to find that as a solution and to use that creative solution to relieve her stress. And for a mum to be worried about and to do, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but in that particular moment.
Well, there you go. That's a really interesting situation that you've given us there, Paul. And I'm interested in what people's reactions to that are going to be. I mean, I've also got with me here Ailey Sanderson, Modern Studies teacher from Port Glasgow High School, and Simon Graham, who's a Modern Studies teacher at St Stephen's High School. Ailey, is that the way you would see a mobile phone being used?
Not particularly. I would say it's very innovative of that young person, but no, I think the way that we use mobile phones for the most part in school is really respectful. And again, what Olivia said, we're building that trust. And if you put in the boundary from the get-go, I would say that the majority of children respond to that. I think it's naive to think that if we completely eradicate mobile phones in schools and there would be no issues anymore, there's then that issue of how the children navigate what they find on their mobile phones, what they find on the internet, because it's a scary place out there. There's lots of things that could be harmful. And if we shy away from that and don't educate them on how to navigate the truth and what's real and what's not out there, then I think that can be even more dangerous.
That's an interesting point. Let me go back. Have we still got Tanya Davey with us from Kilgraston?
I'm here.
Tanya, are you perhaps just sticking your fingers in your ear and going, la, 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 mobile phones don't exist between 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and therefore, we don't have to deal with them?
No, not at all. In our PSHME course, which is learning about life skills, use of social media is discussed there. We do it in IT, we do it through our pastoral care. So it's very much that they are there, and this is what you deal with it. For example, we do have social media takeover days where some of our senior pupils will be permitted their phones to go out and promote their, say, science, because that's the area of interest that those pupils have, and they can promote what they're doing in science that day. So we do empower our pupils to be able to use it when effectively needed. And like you said there, speaking with Paul, is, if a pupil has learning needs, that they need special equipment, then all of that is considered. What I think we need to be very careful about is using the phone in loco parentis, where you can use it to access straight to parents. I mean, I am a maths teacher, and I would be horrified if my pupil produced that because they could not ask me for help. I think pastorally, we cannot use a phone as contacting parents for pastoral support. We need to create strong pastoral systems within the school, using pupils as mental health ambassadors, using the pastoral team heads a year, whatever system schools have, to make sure that there is human contact for people and pupils to go and ask for help, to know how to access that, rather than phone home. And remember, the version that a young person will give on the phone to the parent isn't always necessarily the total reality of what is occurring, and it can cause more concern and stress.
You know, it's funny, I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to the representatives from the shared campus here. And I guess we set it up, and as we kind of not always or often do on a phone, it is, do you think A or do you think B? You know, and actually maybe there are a number of successful ways of doing it. At your school, you've decided that you're not going to have the phone there during the school day. Here they have a different system. Maybe, Tanya, it's not necessarily one's better than the other. It's just that, you know, they require managed in a different way. And
we're not that different. We're saying the same thing. It's just how we manage it. And we're playing with time here. I mean, the times that they're permitted in at St. Stephen's is during break and lunchtime and stuff. We're acknowledging the challenge of having it in the class. That's exactly the same. It just works here that we don't have it. It's not a judgment made or one way is better than the other. I think it is fluid, and you also know who your community are. It's a three-way partnership between parents, pupils and staff. You know what you're dealing with and what you can do to make it work.
I'm just looking at some of the text that we've got, and I think Tanya, you have to leave us after this, but thank you very much. JB in Glasgow says, I know of teachers who despair of kids using their phones in class, that they've started bribing them with small sweets at the start of the class to leave their phones at the front of the room. It works. To hear the deputy head of St. Stephen's defend kids using phones in school because they need to stay in touch with their parents is a nonsense. It's backward thinking. Well, the deputy head has left us now. We've got Ailey and Simon with us, but as always it may be worth considering. There's another text here that this is a cultural problem. Maybe we should be teaching and instilling fair and respectful use. If mobiles don't exist until kids are 16, they're going to have big problems when they hit 16. That's from Dave in Galloway, and that is a suggestion that is out there, isn't it, that young people shouldn't have access to mobile phones at all until they are 16. Henry Hepburn, editor of TES Scotland, morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, and sorry, I know I've been promising to come to you for the last 20 minutes, but I keep getting diverted, so I do apologise for that. It's been an interesting conversation. But, you know, in terms of what evidence that we have that the use of mobile phones has an impact, positive or negative, what do we have?
Well, I mean, I think the research community has been playing catch-up for years on this. I'm reminded of a picture I saw years ago. It's a really interesting parallel. I remember seeing a picture of Times Square in New York with all these horse-drawn carriages, and then the same picture taken from the same vantage point 10 years later, and all the horse-drawn carriages had gone, and it was all motor cars, with all the huge implications that had for industry, economy, safety, environment, infrastructure and so on. We've gone through a similar rate of change here. We've taken 2012 as a starting point for phones becoming all pervasive in society, so it's around the same period. And we've basically embarked on a huge social experiment, and the research community is, you know, as I say, had to play catch up. But there is, you know, compelling evidence starting to emerge around the impact of phones in society, but also in schools generally. I mean, one particular report I think of is, which gives an international perspective, was from UNESCO last year, and they obviously had an international perspective where they came to the conclusion that schools, that smartphones shouldn't be used in class, or only in very limited ways where it can be shown that it would improve learning outcomes. One of the most interesting things was that found by UNESCO was that there was a negative impact of phones, but even when they're switched off. So, you know, the exact quote was, mere proximity to a mobile device was found to distract students and to have a negative impact on learning. So, and you'll know that yourself when you're watching a film or something. Yeah. If you have your phone to your side, you want to check it, whereas we chuck it through in the kitchen, then you're less likely to be distracted. So phones are having a negative impact on kids, even when they're switched off, if they're nearby. That seems to be what UNESCO came to a view around.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because we can't really start making a separation between, you know, minor use of, I mean minors' use of phones and adults' use of phones, because we know as adults what effect it has on us. And I mean, I've said a couple of times, kind of joking, but I'm absolutely not joking, that I use my phone too much, and I absolutely relate to what you're saying there, Henry. Even the very fact that it is around, you kind of find your hand stretching for it. And I suppose that would be an argument to say, if we have if we've acknowledged that as adults over the last 10 to 12 years, why are we then allowing our young people to develop the same habits? Why are we not doing something to try and break those habits?
Yeah, and crucially, I think the difference between us as adults who've been around for a bit longer and teenagers is that they're at a very crucial developmental point in their lives. So those constant dopamine hits, we don't really know exactly what impact they're having, but certainly, as I say, there's some fairly compelling evidence that it's not helpful. But I should say that people who look into this, they're not tended to say, let's just get rid of phones altogether. They are saying that there can be some useful learning that comes from using devices, but you can't just throw a whole load of phones or a whole load of devices into a room and expect them to have a positive impact. It needs to be quite fine-tuned.
Thanks, Henry. I've now got Rob and Annie sitting next to me, pupils from, well, Annie is from St Stephen's High School. Hi, Annie. And Rob is from Port Glasgow High School. Thanks for joining us. Olivia and Luke are off the hook now. Rob, what do you think listening to this conversation? I mean, I don't know what your mum and dad are like or other adults in your life, whether they're as bad as me, but we do know that there are negative impacts of mobile phone use, technology in general. Do you not think it is a responsibility of adults to say, do you know what, the last 10 years we have seen negativity coming out of this, things that perhaps we couldn't have predicted, and so we need to do something different with your generation?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'd say it's probably more of a parent thing than a school thing. I think parents would have to manage phones more than schools do. I think that's more a responsibility of them, making sure their kids are not looking at things that they shouldn't be, making sure their kids are using phones in the right way, definitely.
And also maybe making sure that they're using phones in the right way.
Yeah, parents as well, yeah, I know. Parents complain to their kids that they're on their phones too much, and then parents go on their phones and they just sit there on them as well.
I mean, do you worry about being kind of lashed to your phone?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be sitting there trying to do homework and I'll see my phone sitting there and I want to just grab it, as you were saying with the movie thing.
Yep.
I'll just have a temptation to go over and take it.
Yeah. What about you, Annie?
Well, I feel like phones are really distracting, especially for me, because I can see my phone light up and I just want to look at it. But it also, when we have phones, it gives us freedom and a privilege that a lot of young people never had when they were younger. And I feel like it's actually a good source of things that you can go on to, but it can be quite distracting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the kind of conundrum that we find ourselves in, isn't it? What do you think, Simon, having listened to... I mean, it's interesting to hear pupils here acknowledging that, like all of us, it just blinks away in the side of your head. It's part of your consciousness, and it doesn't feel good.
Well, I think it's undeniable that the use of mobile phones in schools can cause challenges. I wouldn't sit here and lie about that, but I suppose I would like to agree with a few of the callers and some of the young people when they've been talking about some of the positive uses as a piece of tech. In terms of the way it can enhance learning, I don't even think we've started to fully realise its potential yet in terms of what it can do. I mean, we've used it in a number of different ways in our classes. We think positively. I think it's important.
But that is technology, isn't it? And so, of course, the access to the internet and the technology that I'm sitting in front of a laptop, it's fantastic. But should it not be in the control of the school? Right, here is a bit of kit that we think will be really beneficial to your learning, and there you go, you get it, and at the end of the lesson then it comes away, and that is its sole purpose. Whereas we know the mobile phone is everything. It's an absolute cornucopia of different things, some of them good and some of them bad. So we're offering them the full boona rather than a very sort of selective, okay, here's a bit of kit to do this.
I think with the best will in the world, most schools don't have the IT capacity to just say, OK, we need laptops, let's get them out at the drop of a hat. The responsible use of mobile phones allows teachers in their lesson planning to, at appropriate times, develop tasks. But
it's interesting to say that the responsible use, because just as the way the conversation has gone there, and we've heard from both Annie and Rob, it's there, you're conscious of it. There's just a sort of background hum that comes from a device like that, that even if it is in your bag, you're wondering, I wonder if so-and-so's got in touch, or I wonder when this is finished, I can message so-and-so, or I wonder if, you know, when Simon's back's turned, I can just do a wee message now. It's that perhaps is really starting to eat into us.
I think that, to be fair, that the school policy that we've adopted, that it should be off and in your bag, apart from when the teacher's told you to have it out for a specific learning task, does sort of mitigate some of those dangers.
But it doesn't, because it's still in your bag.
But it should be turned off.
I know, but it's in your head.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what we've surely learned over, you know, the last 10 to 12 years. It sits in your head. You know you've got it. It's sitting in your pocket.
The alternative to that, which is just an outright ban, kind of. I mean, we're also a rights respecting school, and we try to frame everything we do within the lens of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.
I know, but somebody might argue you're giving your kids the right to get hooked on something that is potentially harmful.
I don't think the way that our school policy currently lies encourages pupils to get hooked on something that's harmful, I must say.
But can you see where I'm coming from, Rob?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, definitely. Because when your phone is sitting there, it can be in your pocket. I know it's meant to be in your bag, but usually a lot of people do just keep their phones in their pockets. And you do have a temptation to sometimes take it out. And I feel like maybe punishments, well, there is already punishments definitely for taking your phone out, but maybe just the moment it's out, you take it away. Maybe if a teacher sees your phone out, they
is
just
that the school bell, by the way?
Yes.
Is it? Right. Well, listen, we'll go for a trail and come back then. I'm not gonna ignore the school bell.
Spring might be in the air. Oh, please, please.
Isn't the difference a bit of sunshine and blue skies make, isn't it?
Explore the season ahead with Mark and Rachel.
I almost like you've got like a checklist of birds that appear at the start of spring.
It's that sort of moment of hopefulness, really.
Why did he want to build this?
Vanity.
And get news and stories from the great outdoors.
Here's a model that we can be working with and changing the food carbon footprint.
It's all the more important that we look after rivers properly.
Listen this spring.
It's amazing. You can actually see the difference in the amount of daylight now.
Out of Doors. Saturday mornings from 6:30 on BBC Radio Scotland and Sounds.
Hey, I got a question I want to ask you all. How many people came here to change the world?
They came to Columbus University to get an education.
You're gonna have to be careful out here.
No matter who you are.
Where are you from? Orange County. It's near Disneyland.
No matter where you're from.
You live near Disneyland.
Welcome to the real world. No matter what you believe. What you learn is up to you.
It's different here than I thought it was going to be, you know? It seems like everybody's sticking to their own.
People don't realize how far down the drain America's gone.
Columbia Pictures presents a new film from John Singleton.
Information is power. This is power.
You're dead. There are many ways to fight a battle. Some people use their mind. Some people use their fists. What are you going to do, college boy?
The basic premise of democratic theory. They are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It is 10 to 10. This is Kay Adams with you till 12, and we are out and about today. We are at the Port Glasgow Community Campus. There are 3 schools on this campus, actually: St Stephen's High School, Port Glasgow High School, and Craig Marloch. And we've been speaking this morning about smartphone use, and yeah, really interesting conversation. 08085 92 95 00 is a number to call to get your thoughts in. You can text us on 80295. We'll speak to Heather, who's called called in from Renfrewshire in just a second. But still to come this morning.
I've also been pushed and fallen backwards. I'll go home, and even when I'm in bed, I'll be thinking about what happened or what might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, that's one teacher from Aberdeen describing the effect that disruptive pupil behaviours had on her. We'll be finding out what the situation is like here at Port Glasgow and discussing how they promote positive behaviour. And we've got your first clue for the Name the Place quiz coming up as ever just after 10.
Your mornings just got better. This year on BBC Radio Scotland.
Right, just before I come to Heather, let me just finish that conversation I was having with Rob, one of the pupils here. You were just saying there, Rob, that, you know, you're aware of it. Potentially, there should be more of a sanction for looking at taking out your pocket, whatever. But what about Tanya Davey, the head teacher that we heard from earlier on from Kilgraston, that it is just their rule that you don't have it throughout the school day? It's either in a locker or, you know, it doesn't come to school.
I definitely think that students should have phones, because students might go out, like, is it at lunch they can't have their phone either? Can they not have their...
Not for the entire school day.
It's because, see, at lunch, students might go out to shops and stuff like that, and when they're leaving school premises, I definitely think they would like to have contact with other people, especially their parents maybe, on their phone. Just having parental contact, I definitely think it's important to have it at break or lunch, I'd definitely say.
Right. And I suppose the other thing is that we integrate this kind of technology into our daily lives, don't we? I mean, you might have Apple Pay or some other kind of payment method on your phone, or you might get your train timetable, your bus timetable, your tickets or whatever. So it is a difficult thing to separate it out. Heather's in Renfrewshire. Hi there, Heather.
Hi, good morning, Kay.
Good morning, good morning. So what are your thoughts? Do they have a place in school or not, Heather?
No, they should be banned in school. Because...
And why is that?
They're so addictive. The children cannot help but keep looking at the phone if it's there for them to look at the phone. And the longer they have had the phone and they've used the phone, the more addictive they become. And they're very young when they start. I guess
the counter argument, I guess, Heather, would be unless you're going to take them out of society altogether, and that looks unlikely, then surely the responsible thing to do is to support young people in managing the potentially addictive nature of phones, rather than just pretending they don't exist.
No, they can use it outside school and at home, but under supervision, or it should be regulated. And in school, it's very tempting. If I was a school child and if I was addicted or I liked looking at my mobile phone, I would keep it under some book or on my knee even and have a look at it while the teacher is teaching. So that's not going to do me any good as a child. And I'm not...
Am I right in thinking you've got a granddaughter of school age, Heather?
Yes, one of them is 10.
Right, and how does she manage it?
She is very addicted to using the phone, and could be over a year ago. I just happened to be there, and I saw the spelling jotter, and she was preparing for a spelling test the next day, and I was surprised at how erratic the marks were. So I said to her, right, if you get these right tomorrow, I'll give you £1. That worked for a long time, and the spelling improved. So the mobile phone usage was not interfering with that. But then a few months later, it's not helping. Mum's working on it, and she's very nice, so she won't say, I won't do it. Just now she does shake her head, but that's the most she would do. But all of a sudden you find she's away to the toilet, but she's got the phone. Mum hides the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're bringing up sort of concentration focus here, aren't you? And that's another concern that is often put forward in terms of, you know, the existence of mobile phones. Going back to Henry Hepburn from TES Scotland, again, any kind of research on that, Henry, in terms of it's changing the way that our brains actually operate and limiting our ability to focus?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, the research is still emerging, but I'd come back to this UNESCO report from last year, which pulled together a lot of evidence, and there certainly are concerns about the cognitive impact, and closer to home, there's a longitudinal survey, the Behaviour in Scottish Schools survey, which reported last November for the first time in several years, and it found that the biggest impact on learning just now was pupils looking at phones when they're not supposed to be looking at phones.
We've got Dan Sodergren with us, who's a tech expert. Morning, Dan.
Morning.
Good morning. I mean, as Henry was saying there, the research that we have around this is still fairly embryonic, because really it's been 10, 12 years since mobile phones have been such a presence within our lives. Is it a good time for us to be taking stock now and thinking, right, OK, what good are they doing us? What harm might they be doing us? And is there room for a sort of change in policy?
Well, to start off with, I need to say this comes from a place of warmth and understanding, because my parents are teachers and about 70% of my family are teachers. I've worked with 40 universities and 20 different schools. I've even written curriculums, etc. I now do keynotes about the future of work and technology and AI. The education sector is traditionally extremely slow to change. It took them about 13 years to accept the calculator. It took, the lady was talking about social media being taught now, but that took 7 years for that to happen. We wanted technology actually inside. Remember, lobbying governments for saying, please give us technology inside schools. Well, the mobile phone is now the same
but Dan,
level of
nobody
technology.
ever got addicted to a calculator.
No, but the level of technology now in a mobile phone is the same as what was in a laptop before, and we wanted laptops inside schools. So it's teachers as well that have to change.
But the tech that you're talking about tends to be dedicated in its purpose. I mean, a calculator, I wasn't being entirely facetious there. We know what a calculator does. I mean, I'm sure they don't have blackboards anymore. They have smart boards, or they have other things. There's tech that is designed for a purpose. But what you have in a mobile phone is everything from the most interesting information that can be used in a modern studies class with the two teachers here to hardcore porn.
Yeah, but the future of work, because this is what we're talking about with education, is what education right now, what are they teaching young people? And to take out mobile, is literally the future of work is going to be mobile phones and that technology. Schools right now are really good at creating people for fields and factories, and it's 100 years too late. We're now in this world now of artificial intelligence, and we teach teachers about artificial intelligence on the AI teacher course. We're in this fifth industrial revolution, Kay. I understand from an emotional point of view, you can say, yeah, but mobile phones bring so much negativity. The reality is, though, is that young people will use mobile phone and mobile technology for the rest of their lives. And what we need to teach them is how to do that in a responsible way. It's like a digital Green Cross code is what we need to do. So, for example, that young person before was talking about, just turn your notifications off. If you're addicted, turn your notifications off. It's one of the key things we should be teaching young people to do, is to use technology.
But that's like saying to an alcoholic, if you're addicted, then don't drink. etc. Far too many videos seem to be recorded around the school. Children who live many miles from school need phones. For example, when school transport is late or breaks down, banning them from schools would not work in the 21st century, but they do need to be managed. Thanks for getting in touch. Still to come this morning, we are going to take a deep dive into how the shared campus we are broadcasting from actually works, from football to faith. We'll be discussing another hot topic in Scotland schools right now.
I've also been pushed and fallen backwards. I'll go home, and even when I'm in bed, I'll be thinking about what happened or what might happen tomorrow.
That's one teacher from Aberdeen describing the effect disruptive pupil behaviour has had on her. We'll be finding out how her host schools take a proactive approach to behaviour. And what about out of school hours?
There's a whole range of different activities that your child could take up that's going to help them explore who they are as a person, but also get to develop socially and meet new people in their community.
We'll find out what extracurricular activities are on offer and how much does catchment area matter.
The Sunday Times Schools Guide says that Jordan Hill in Glasgow has been named the top state secondary in Scotland.
Well, our property expert Brian Gilmore is going to be here giving us a lowdown on the link between schools and house prices. And despite our change of location, we still have our Name the Place quiz. Of course we do. First clue coming right up.
This one is
BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Yes, nothing stops our Name the Place quiz on a Tuesday just about this time. This is our treasure hunt on the radio. We are going to give you 6 clues in total, including the newly introduced easy peasy clue number 6, round about 11:30, devised by Professor Carol Huff, Professor of Onomastics at Glasgow University. They should all lead you to one place in Scotland. I'm really hoping that one of these seriously smart pupils here doesn't manage to work it out and blow the whole game. Probably they will. Somebody please control Olivia, would you? When you hear this... Yeah, that's not the school bell, that is our clever klaxon. So when somebody manages to work it out, then that's what we're going to hear. But we're all running our own race here. Keep your guesses coming in until Carol reveals the answer just before 12 o'clock. So here you go. This is the first clue. Today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde, and also has something in common with it. There you go. Professor Carol Huff obviously trying to make a very appropriate set of clues today for Name the Place. You're looking for one place in Scotland, and that is the first clue. Today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde and also has something else in common with it. 80295 is the text number.
Play it cool, stay in school, and listen to what I say. Don't be a high school dropout. Don't throw your chance away. You gotta play it cool, stay in school. You gotta wait till you graduate. Don't be a high school dropout. Don't make that great mistake. Yeah, stay in school. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, stay in school. Yeah, yeah. Well, no one likes a
Paolo Nutini there. Not quite a local boy, but not too far away. Paisley, I think. Quick reminder of our first clue for our Name the Place quiz. You're looking for one place in Scotland. Remember, today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde, but also has something else in common with it. That is clue number 1. 80295, as ever, is the text number. So, here we are today. Well, we're sitting in a gym hall right now. Well, one of the gym halls, I imagine. We've got 2 basketball courts, 3 basketball courts, if you look at it that way. It's a very large campus. I couldn't tell you what it looks like from the front because I came in through the back door, as I usually do. It was officially opened in 2014, built at a cost of £44 million, and is one of Scotland's more than 200 shared sites. So it houses the non-denominational Port Glasgow High School, the Catholic St Stephen's High School and Craigmarloch School for children with additional support needs. The arrangement is one that was very much championed by former Labour First Minister Lord Jack McConnell. He is joining us this morning by Zoom. Good morning to you, Jack.
Good morning. I'm not on, for some reason, your technical team couldn't quite get the Zoom working, so I'm just on the phone, I'm afraid.
All right, well, that's good. On the phone and listening. And if you don't mind, Jack, we're just going to get a bit more of an introduction to this campus here from Gillian Carroll, who's the head teacher at Port Glasgow High School. We've got David Killen, who is the head teacher at St Stephen's High School. And we've also got George Walker, who is the head teacher at Craigmarloch. So, Gillian, if you don't mind, tell us a bit more about the wider area for people who are listening from elsewhere in Scotland, and indeed a bit about the history of the school and how it works.
So, as you said, yes, we are the 3 schools that occupy the Port Glasgow campus, and it opened 10 years ago. You have to hike up the hill from the town centre of Port Glasgow to get to us. We're right at the top of Port Glasgow, just as you head out of the countryside towards Kilmacombe. And between the 3 schools, we actually welcome around about 1,300 young people to our campus every day. St Stephen's and Port Glasgow High School are 2 of 6 Inverclyde secondary schools within the authority, and we serve the Port Glasgow community along with Kilmacombe. However, Craigmarloch actually has pupils joining us from all over Inverclyde each day. And we are proud of being 3 separate schools that work collegiately under one roof for the benefit of our young people.
And what was the thinking behind having a shared campus?
That came before me, I'm afraid, Kay. I can't tell you that, but what I can say is what it has allowed us to do is really increase pathways for young people in all 3 schools and really increase the offer that we provide our learners within the 3 schools.
Well, actually, I can maybe bring Jack McConnell in on this because you were very much a champion of the shared campus, weren't you, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I'm delighted to hear from one of your top team there that this is a success. I always thought it was a strange outcome of the system that we have in Scotland, that 2 schools could be side by side with a playing field between them and not actually make use of each other's facilities where that would be appropriate or helpful for the kids. And then we were in a situation 20 years ago where authorities were having to make decisions about closing schools because of falling school rolls and bus children to other parts of their area rather than bring schools together, build new schools and find a way of actually cooperating and working together. And what it's done is it's improved facilities, it's expanded choices and opportunities. There was hostility and opposition in some parts towards this approach, but I think parents and children have won out, and teachers and head teachers in particular, I'm sure, can feel the benefit.
I mean, we can't get away from it, Jack, and in other parts of the country there will be towns and cities that have a non-denominational school and a Catholic school. They are very separate, and some people sometimes have a problem with the existence of both. Was this also part of a move to try and get rid of some of the division that was there?
Well, that wasn't the main purpose, but it was definitely a side effect. The main purpose was to keep education as local as possible with the best possible choice and range of facilities available in the new school building programme that we launched in 2000. And we're starting to build up when I was First Minister and we got into this process of shared campuses. I think the other benefits, though, I think are obvious for all communities, including the Catholic community. I think the opportunity for young people to spend time together in the same facility, walking to school together, being in a school playground and sometimes sports facilities and other facilities together, I have no doubt will have long-term benefits in terms of understanding and a reduction in the sort of historical tension that we saw in too many communities in Scotland in the latter half of the 20th century.
Yeah. Well, David Killen, head teacher at St Stephen's High School, Gillian alluded to the fact that when this campus was opened 10 years ago, there was a little bit of objection. I know both of you two are relatively recent, aren't you? So you don't go back to 2014, but I'm sure you'll be aware of it. David, what was the reaction at the time?
I can honestly not comment on what happened previously in terms of reaction at that point, but what I can say since I've come into the campus is here the close working relationships that exist across both schools, all three schools, is incredible. And I think, we're probably unique in the fact that we serve a very distinct area of Port Glasgow. So we serve the community of Port Glasgow. It just so happens that within both of our unique settings, I look after the Catholic community of Port Glasgow. We have non-Catholics who also attend, and people of other faiths who attend St Stephen's High School. And similarly, there will be Catholics and people of other faiths who attend Port Glasgow High School. But it's how we work together to serve the wider community as in our respective identities, but also in how we work together in order to do that. And, I think both schools, all three schools, are very well and highly respected across the wider community. And I think that's champion of the people who've been in place before us, who've worked hard to really build up those relationships and set that tone for the people of Port Glasgow.
Has it taken a time, though, to get to that point, Gillian?
I mean,
we can't ignore the past, can we?
No, we can't ignore the past, but what I would have to say is that you almost have to see it to believe it. So you referenced the fact that we are both relatively new, and I remember having a conversation with the previous head teacher of Port Glasgow High School when I was getting ready to start my post, and I was saying things to him like, so see in the canteen, do the St Stephen's kids sit over this side and the Port Glasgow High kids sit over this side? And he was like, no. And I think Olivia used that fantastic word when she talked about our vibrant social area. And it is vibrant, and I can tell you when you walk into our social area, there are tables absolutely of St Stephen's pupils and Port High pupils, but more often than not, there's whole mixes of young people together. We have Craig Marlick that come over and have lunch in our canteen as well. And there is a real mix of young people, both St Stephen's and Port High, that socialise with each other at interval, at lunchtime. And there really isn't those divisions that I think if you didn't see it, you would think exist.
So where does Craig Marlick come in then, George?
Well,
tell us about Craig Marlick.
So we are a school for young people with additional support needs. So we are an all-through school. So we have early years primary and we have secondary. But being part of the shared campus provides us with nothing but opportunity. It's a very, very positive model, and it enables us to create opportunities, particularly in the secondary phase, for our young people to learn in a peer environment with their mainstream peers, which is so important for our young people to get that opportunity. But what we have, and what I think is more important than anything, is an ethos of inclusion and respect across the three schools. These are huge barriers for my young people. But they don't exist here because this is where they go to school. They come into the campus, albeit we are three different schools. We have our own identity, but we come to school in the same building. And that is huge for our young people.
Well, why is that so impactful?
Because they feel valued, they feel included, and they feel they don't feel different. They feel that they are part of a community. They feel that they have opportunities and chance to achieve the way their brothers and sisters do, who perhaps attend the campus as well. So rather than maybe feeling isolated in a school that's somewhere else within the authority, they're fully part of this wonderful campus and this community that we've got here. For me, that's the one of the most powerful things about this model.
They almost become shared pupils, don't they, George? Because even when the first section was on, I popped outside into the corridor and I met Sarah. Sarah is a pupil who attends Creagmarlock and Port Glasgow High School. Yep. And I see Sarah as much a Port Glasgow High School pupil as you see her a Creagmarlock pupil. I think she's a true pupil of the campus.
Yeah, I think that's very important to acknowledge that the campus works. It works both ways.
Yeah,
both ways, three ways.
Yeah.
I have pupils who come in here, but there are pupils from St Stephen's and Port High who will come through to Creagmarlock for specific parts of their learning as well. So we all work together, and that's down to the strengths of the teams, management teams and the staff teams, and the philosophy of the campus.
Jack McConnell, is this the vision that you were hoping for?
It's probably just as well that I'm not on Zoom, because I'm actually feeling quite emotional about this. This is absolutely fantastic. It's exactly what should be the focus of our local education system in Scotland, making sure that pupils, first of all, have that life experience of being together, but also that they have a range of options and facilities and support, and also teaching and learning that can really push them on to new opportunities. And I think I think that authorities like Inverclyde, where you are, Midlothian, who did something similar, that was opened about 10 years before, I think around about 2005, 2006. So these authorities were brave, and they did have some local opposition, but they could see the benefit, and they persevered, and local children are now able to do that. There were communities in Scotland where people were literally fighting in the streets because the council had made a decision one way or the other to close either a Catholic school or a non-denominational school in order to release the money to rebuild a different school for the other side, in inverted commas. And these communities now have shared campuses where people are living together better, but they are also getting better education. It's just fabulous. I've got a big, big smile on my face.
I mean, I think there are around about 200 share sites in Scotland. I mean, I don't know. Have you any idea of the figures, Jack McConnell, as to what proportion that makes up of the whole?
I think there are about 4,000 to 5,000 schools in Scotland, something like that.
All right, so it's a tiny percentage then.
It's a relatively small proportion. And obviously there are a lot of communities which never had even the two or the three, in your case, types of schools. I grew up in the Isle of Arran, and our shared campus in my village was between the primary school and the secondary school. There wasn't two secondary schools on the island. But in some ways, I suppose that maybe that was a little bit of a kernel in my mind, because as a primary school pupil, I remember being able to enjoy the secondary school facilities in a way that the other primaries on the island couldn't do. So, I would hope. I know the school building programme has slowed down a bit over the years, and it's not going at the pace that it was back 20 years ago. But I would hope that more authorities would look at this option. I think, in particular, for additional support needs. Full-scale integration is really difficult for some kids, but completely separate education is really harmful for everybody. And I think that this model of bringing the support needs school into right into the mainstream, but still having its own identity and its own teaching style and so on, I think is a model that more people in Scotland should follow.
Yeah, and it's a really important point of this discussion that we shouldn't overlook. It's very easy to talk about faith schools, non-denominational, that becomes the focus. But increasingly in education, we are talking about how we support children with additional needs, and there will be some, George, that argue that perhaps mainstreaming has gone too far in one direction. Is this model that you have here one that you would advocate?
Yeah, it is, and I think it's interesting. Obviously listening to what Jack McConnell's saying there about 20 years ago, but if you go back, I can go back 30 years ago when I was a pupil in a school, and I was given a letter to take home to my parents asking whether they would approve of an additional support needs school being housed within the mainstream school that I attended. And to think that that was the mindset, that they would have to approve, that we've been asked if that was okay, is, it's quite frightening that's the way we thought about 30 years ago. That school opened, that was a success. Through the school's modernisation programme that Jack was referring to, it was then put at the forefront of a brand new campus, very similar to ourselves. And I think we need to really recognise the inclusion journey and how far it has come. And yes, we do need schools to maintain their own identity, but a campus model just allows you to do that. It allows you to meet the needs of all learners, but to really provide those opportunities to stretch the young people who can access the mainstream curriculum for some of their timetable.
David, is it also good for you to have Craig Marlock on site?
Absolutely. We benefit from all of our schools, from sharing resources, from sharing expertise. And, we have a proportion of young people who come to St Stephen's who have additional support needs, and we're able to tap into the expertise through Craig Marlock, which you can do. Every school does that, the expertise in a local authority, but having that on your doorstep, just through the wall, picking up a phone and being able to go in and ask questions and get support. And, as George was mentioning, being able for some of our young people to access various parts of the curriculum through Craig Marlock, and similarly, Craig Marlock young people to access parts of the curriculum through ours. I think it's an incredibly inclusive model. I think it works incredibly well, and it allows us to support our young people in a way that perhaps some schools aren't able to because of the structure that we have here in the joint campus.
Is that something you'd echo, Julie?
Absolutely, yes. I think that in essence what the three schools in working together do is remove barriers to learning for all young people on the campus, and it happens not just at the kind of planning level with our deputies who work extremely hard with one another across the campus to align curriculum and timetable and all of those things, but actually, as David referenced, our teachers as well working collegiately to support all learners on the campus.
Good. Well, listen, we're going to find out a little bit more about exactly how you do work together in just a bit. Lord Jack McConnell, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I'm glad the last 28 minutes or so have brought a tear to your eye in a good way. So thank you for joining us. I need to just catch up with my name, the place. I've kind of ignored it today a little bit because we are not in our usual spot. The first clue I gave you was today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde and also has something in common with it. George the Postie is going for Grangemouth, always a popular guess with me. It's wrong, but never mind, I like hearing it. Cumbernauld, says Fiona in Latherson. Weems Bay is a very popular guess, actually. I'm just scrolling down there. You can strike that one off your list. It's not Weems Bay, not Grangemouth, and not Cumbernauld. I'll give you another clue in just a tick.
Because it's exam time again, we're taking an exam, so Chris and Dave can prove to you just how clever they am. Although Chris writes these jingles, he knows his grammar isn't good. He writes the words too quickly and they never really fit into the jingle. The Chris Moyle Show.
Then, on Sunday afternoon,
Rangers against Heart of Midlothian.
Live on BBC Radio Scotland.
It is just coming up to 10:30. We're just shuffling chairs here, if you hear a bit of shuffling. You can't have a school without shuffling chairs, have you? Right, I need to give you clue number 2 for Name the Place, because you're a little bit stumped at the moment. Here it is. A street name commemorates a building destroyed during the First War of Scottish Independence. A street name commemorates a building destroyed during the First War of Scottish Independence. Clue number 1, of course, today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde and also has something else in common with it. And clue number 2, a street name commemorates a building destroyed during the First War of Scottish Independence. Have any of our pupils here from the schools got it? No, it's all right, neither have I. No clue, I never do. But never mind, because we have an easy peasy clue, as I love to call it, coming up at 11:30. 80295 is the text number. Also coming up this morning.
I've also been pushed and fallen backwards. I'll go home, and even when I'm in bed, I'll be thinking about what happened, or what might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, one teacher from Aberdeen describing the effect that disruptive pupil behaviour has on her. We're going to find out what the situation is here in Port Glasgow and discussing how they promote positive behaviour. Right now, though, it's Kygo.
Here we go, we're gonna send this one out to the old school. All these motherfuckers in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Staten Island, Queens, and all the motherfuckers that laid it down, the foundation, you know what I'm saying? Number love for the old school, that's what we gonna do this one for, you feel me?
What more can I say? I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way. What more can I say? I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way. What more can I say? I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't
I remember Mr. Magic Flash, Grandmaster Cass, LL, raising hell, but I didn't last. Every D and Rakim was the shit to me. I flipped to see a Dougie Fresh show with Ricky G and Rattle Earth was putting in work. And Chuck Chill had my homies on the hill getting ill when shit was real. When I still remember Raw with Daddy Kane, when De La Soul was putting potholes in the game. I can't explain how it was. Houdini had me puffing on that Buddha getting buzzed. Cause there I was, them block parties in the projects and on my block. And think you don't stop sipping on that private side. And through my speaker, Queen Latifah and MC Light. Listen to Trench KRS to get me through the night. With Taylor Rockin' Mantronics and Step the Sonic. Remember Pusha was the bar shit, nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
I had shell toes and BVDs. I kill the grease inside my leaves when I hit the streets. I'm playing Skelly, Ring Olivio, or Catch a Kiss. Before the homies in my hood learn to smack a bitch. I remember way back the week weed they had. Too many seeds in the trade bag. I'm on the train heading uptown, freestyling with some wild kids from Bucktown. Profiling cause the hoop chicks was staring, checking where the niggas wearing. I'm wondering if that's ahead. I remember stick ball, Uncle Hoochie's on the ball. I'm taking leaps on the steps, sneaking up the hall. Through my childhood, wild as a juvenile. A young nigga trying to stay away from Rikers out. Me and my homies breaking nights, trying to keep it true. Out on the roof, sipping 90 proof, ain't nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Remember popping and locking at Curtis Blow, the name belts, and Scotland Rock the Super Hole back in Latin quarters. When Slick Rick was spitting Lottie Dottie, came in the hoochies at the neighborhood block parties. I remember break dancing the Melly Mel, tickling hard LL when he rocked the bells. Forget the TV, I'd rather hit the streets and do graffiti. Be careful, don't let the transit cops see me. Ain't nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
It ain't nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't
It ain't nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today
on the real though. Ain't nothing like the old school.
I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way. What more can I say? I wouldn't be here today if the old school didn't pave the way.
Remember seeing Brooklyn go crazy up in the motherfucking party? Remember motherfuckers used to go, it's Brooklyn in the house, and motherfuckers would lose their goddamn mind. That's the old school to me. That's what I'm saying. I remember going places and motherfuckers were scared to say they was from anywhere but Brooklyn. That shit was the bomb back in the motherfucking old school, nigga. Remember Skelly, nigga, knocking niggas out the box, popping boxes. Remember Stickball? Remember niggas used to run that shit like that? Remember the block? Remember screaming up at your mom from the window? The ice cream truck? Remember remember the Italian ices, yo? Yo, remember the Italian ices? The Spanish niggas coming down with the coconut ices and shit? I came through the door, said it before.
Who's the
greatest mud skipper of them all? Who can skip through the mud with the greatest of ease? What kind of wonderful guy? Who can crawl like a dog without scraping his knees? Who's got segmented eyes? It's
on BBC Radio Scotland.
And because it's Education Week, they've let us out of the studio, which is great. We are at the shared campus at Port Glasgow High School, St Stephen's High School and Craigmarloch School all share the same campus. It's been a busy morning, which has been good for me because I haven't had one opportunity to check my phone, given the conversation we had on the phone this morning. It is burning a hole in my pocket, but I haven't looked at it. I'm very proud of myself. A quick reminder of the clues for Name the Place. You have 2 thus far. Today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde and also has something else in common with it. And clue number 2, a street name commemorates a building destroyed during the First War of Scottish Independence. I'm surrounded by teachers. Has anyone worked it out yet? No, they're all shuffling papers. Everyone is shuffling papers. Inverary says quickly, but that's wrong. You can strike that one off your list. So let's talk about the faith aspect of this shared campus. So Port Glasgow High School is non-denominational and St Stephen's offers Roman Catholic education. I'm joined again by head teachers Gillian Carroll and David Killen, and also joining us now Father Matthew Carlin, St Stephen's High School parish priest. Morning to you. And Reverend William Boyle, who's a member of the chaplaincy team at Port Glasgow High School. But David, you said actually when we were chatting earlier that despite the fact we have St Stephen's, which is Roman Catholic, and we have Port Glasgow, which is non-denominational, it's not actually as clean-cut as that.
Yeah, you know, from our school perspectives, we're all serving the young people of Port Glasgow, so we look at it as that. However, we have our very distinct Catholic ethos as a Catholic school, and there's various aspects of our school which is distinctly Catholic, particularly the religious education element of that, and the way that we celebrate Mass and liturgical events. And, you know, Port Glasgow High School have got their own version of that for a non-denominational school with a wider chaplaincy team, whereas for us it's Father Matthew, who's our school chaplain, is a local parish priest at St Francis, and Father Dan Fitzpatrick, who's the parish priest at St John's. So we link with the Catholic faith to support that aspect of our school, but for Port Glasgow High School they've got a wider chaplaincy team for them.
Right, so Father Matthew, how much are you involved in the school?
I try to be involved as much as I can be. Chaplains across our Catholic schools do the same kinds of things, although the amount of time that you have to dedicate to it obviously dictates how much you can be involved. So I try to be in St Stephen's for a couple of hours, maybe 3 times a week, 4 times a week if I'm lucky.
And what are you doing when you're here?
So a variety of things. First and foremost, a chaplain, any chaplain, and for me a Catholic chaplain, is supposed to provide pastoral support to everybody in the school. That means pupils and staff, teaching staff, support staff, everybody. Obviously, as a community, there are high points and low points, so that might mean helping to lead celebrations. Yesterday, we had a Mass for all of the pupils who are about to sit exams. Tomorrow, we're going to have a Mass with all the leavers, all the 6th years who are going to be leaving school shortly. Sometimes that might mean observing bereavements if somebody's died. There's also the liturgical aspect to the Catholic school life that I'm responsible for and help lead. We have Mass at least once a week in the school. That becomes a little bit more intense during Lent in the run-up to Easter and Advent in the run-up to Christmas. So we might have extra prayers in our school, very well appointed, very beautiful school oratory that we have in St Stephen's. And then I also like to try to support the RE. So I go into RE classes as much as I can, answer questions, provoke discussion, that kind of thing. Right.
So faith is very present in the education that young people will receive at St Stephen's. Is it similarly so in Port Glasgow? I mean, is faith as present?
Yes, and we support young people in their faith development in Port Glasgow High School as well. And I always say that we are very, very lucky to have a chaplaincy team of many local ministers who are really keen to come in and work with our young people. William is part of a group of 5 chaplains who serve our community, and we also follow a liturgical calendar, and we give our young people the opportunity to learn about those liturgical events or indeed celebrate those liturgical events, and William and his team certainly help us through that. We also, William and his team support us in chaplaincy assemblies and chaplaincy workshops as well.
What about children of no faith?
So we are, as David said, all schools actually really, you'll rarely get a school that's a completely Catholic school or really of any faith, and so we always say that we welcome young people of all faiths and none, and certainly where you can participate in a service, you are able to do so, and that is something that our chaplains say when they are taking us through our liturgical services, or it can often be a learning experience, and actually for me it's all about respect, and what our 2 schools have in common is the core value of respect, and in respect, to be able to truly respect other faiths and other opinions, you have to have that knowledge. And so part of what we deliver is you can take it from a knowledge perspective, or you can take it from absolutely an opportunity to engage and celebrate from a faith perspective or a spiritual perspective.
So William, what's your role on campus then, or in Port Glasgow specifically?
So in Port Glasgow, I'm the parish minister, so Church of Scotland minister for Port Glasgow. Here, obviously, I'm the chaplain, so I'm here on the invitation. All chaplains are here on the invitation of the head teacher. And being a non-denominational school, we absolutely respect, like you said. So there will be pupils who have faith, there'll be pupils who have no faith, pupils not quite sure, or different faith from our own. But as Matthew was saying, pastoral care is hugely important as well. We're here also to help and support the school in whatever way we can in regards to pastoral care. In one of the schools recently that I deal with, there was a bereavement of a member of staff, so as a chaplain, you're there for the whole school community. We're there, as Gillian was saying, to lead assemblies, but also when we lead the assemblies, we're respecting that, not everyone in front of us is going to have the same faith, for example, as myself.
And how do you acknowledge that?
So it's just about, as Gillian was saying again, it's about respect. It's respecting the fact that, I appreciate that not everyone in front of me has got the same faith. So it's not about me coming into this school and, for example, I can only talk for myself and not the other chaplains, but forcing my beliefs or my, on other pupils. But respecting the fact that they've all got different opinions and they may ask questions and, they may query some of the things that we say. So, for example, when I'm leading assembly, I'll maybe say something along the lines of, as a Christian, I believe in, this is what I believe in. And we're absolutely open for questions or comments or anything like that. So yeah, it's coming into the school community, but just respecting that we know that the school has got a wide variety of faith, no faith, different faith from our own.
And David, do you have pupils of other faiths or no faiths?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think Gillian's point that, all young people are welcome in the school, and we use the phrase in St Stephen's all the time that all are welcome, none are judged for who come into our school. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you believe in. You belong to St Stephen's, and, that value of respect permeates across the whole campus. For us as a Catholic school, we talk about the gospel value of love. That was the primary value that we all do. We treat each other with love and dignity. And, we talk about all young people, doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in, that you will know that you are loved, that you're loving, and that you are lovable. And we'll support you to do that, because ultimately we're dealing with young people and we want to shape them with the morals and to be able to tackle the challenges, such as mobile phones, that they'll come up against when they leave school and move into the world of work.
I have to ask though, let's say you were a young person of no faith, right? And you were living in Port Glasgow, and you could either go to Port Glasgow High School or you could go to St Stephen's High School. How would you make that decision?
Oh, we'd be biased on this.
I was going to say, this will become the arm wrestle.
Well, no, but it's interesting. Somebody could move into the area and they could say, oh, there's that fabulous campus up there. It's absolutely marvellous with these 3 schools over there. I don't have a faith.
I suppose what's interesting for me in my career, I have taught in both Catholic and non-Catholic schools. And my experience in both those settings, when I strip it down, it's all about supporting young people becoming positive members of their community, and actually in being good, whatever good looks like. I know that can be a whole kind of range of different perceptions of what it is, but I really believe that having experienced a Catholic school and a non-denominational school, I think that in essence what we are trying to do is offer the opportunity for young people to reflect on themselves, to reflect on what being a positive member of your school or your local community.
But there has to be a difference, or you wouldn't have two different schools.
That's true, and I think David and Father Matthew have really explained what that difference is in terms of engagement in those very specific Catholic Christian events that they have detailed. And for us, I suppose there isn't that kind of movement, perhaps not so much as calendar and the specific events that you mentioned, but I do believe that when we talked, and going back to what Jack McConnell said about that idea about divides being created because people think of faith schools being one way and non-faith schools being other ways. Actually, I think that what we're really trying to promote, if you are of no faith, is a knowledge of other faiths. And there, because often when you don't have a knowledge of other faiths, that's where sometimes, your ignorance can cause you to have various thoughts on either side of the debate. Whereas actually, if you're in a faith school like St Stephen's and maybe not a Catholic, you have a knowledge of that faith that allows you to respect. And similarly, when we have our liturgical calendar, and as William said, absolutely, the chaplains that do speak from that Christian perspective, but what they are providing, even those young people who don't celebrate that faith, is knowledge, and I think knowledge removes barriers.
I don't know if any of our pupils would be happy to talk on this. I don't want to force you into it, and I don't even know if we've got a microphone. Oh yes, we do have a microphone. In terms of, is faith a big feature in your daily life? Now, if nobody else volunteers, I'm going to have to go to poor old Olivia, because I know that she's never going to let me down. There's Olivia there. She's just beside Rob at the end there. I mean, are you guys, when you're going about your normal kind of school life, is faith a big feature?
Me personally, no. But being in third year, I know we still have religious education RE classes, which we get once a week, and I think that's up until fourth year, and then if we choose we can drop it in fifth. And I personally also go to Girls' Brigade outside of school, and I learn things through that. So I guess for me it really just depends, but we still do get, we learn about everything in diversity in classes, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But in terms of mixing with, other pupils on the campus, not necessarily, you're Port Glasgow, yeah? Yeah. Within the campus, is the fact that somebody goes to St Stephen's a major factor?
No, it's just there's three different schools, and we're all just kind of in one building, and everyone just gets along. The only difference is the uniform we wear.
Yeah. Who's got the better uniform?
Port High.
Well, you've got to have that.
I look better in blue.
Fantastic answer. Listen, thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. Thank you. Right, but I think we're going to move on and talk about the curriculum in a bit. Somebody will direct me, no doubt.
We have an ongoing...
So you're going to be in my class this fall, so tell me a little about yourself.
I want to teach the world to sing.
My primary interest is
lunch.
To end racism, to end world hunger, to end illiteracy.
I'm not into sports.
Well, reading, that's not really a sport.
Taxidermy.
I really don't have a lot of time for this.
To be accepted as an Indian dude by these American honkies.
Howard Hessman is head of the class, premiering this fall.
Hey guys, let's do lunch.
Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Find light in the beautiful sea. I chose to be happy. You and I, we're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shining bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shining bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Palms rise to the universe as we moonshine and Malay. Feel the warmth, we'll never die. We're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. At first sight, I felt the energy of surrender. I saw the life inside you. Shine bright tonight, you and I. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Eye to eye, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shining bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shining bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. So shine bright tonight, you and I. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Eye to eye, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Oh yeah. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond.
Let's see what we got here.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
It is 10:51. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. We are out at the shared campus at Port Glasgow. St Stephen's High School, Port Glasgow High School and Craig Marloch all have a home here. But even though we are out and about, we have not forgotten our Name the Place quiz. We don't have a correct answer yet. We've got loads of guesses coming in. First two clues I gave you were today's place name shares a meaning with Inverclyde and also has something else in common with it. Clue number two, a street name commemorates a building destroyed during the First War of Scottish Independence. Linda and Barrett is going for Abernethy. Sorry, Linda. No, it's not. It's not Bannockburn. That's from Patton Inverness. And John and Ellen saying, I think there's a village called Charleston, east of Keith. Maybe there is, but it's not the correct answer, unfortunately, John. Fiona in Latheran is going for Aberfeldy, and Arbroath, that's from George. None of those are correct. You can strike them all off your list. And let me give you another clue. Clue number three. Oh, I've got two science teachers sitting next to me now. They'll get this in a oneer. This will be no problem. It lies between three bodies of water and has nicknames referring to liquid, metal and rock. No pressure, no conferring. You can see how they're feeling the sense of competition there. It lies between three bodies of water and has nicknames referring to liquid, metal and rock. The 80295, as ever, is the text number. We'll have our easy peasy clue at 11:30, and Professor Carol Huff will be here to do the big reveal just before 12 o'clock. Now, we were talking there about faith in a joint campus school, but let's now look at teaching the curriculum. Do joint campuses provide an opportunity to learn in a different way, or do they stick very much to the same kind of script? And as I say, we've got two department heads, Cheryl Burns from Port Glasgow High School, and it is science that you're... So have you got the answer, Cheryl?
No.
Sorry. No, thank you. Sean Stevens from St Stephen's High School. Have you got the answer, Sean?
Pass.
This is not impressive, is it? Considering we've got pupils here. We've got Corey from St Stephen's High School, Sarah Hopkins from Port Glasgow High School, and Matthew there from Craigmarloch. Thanks very much for joining us. Any ideas on name? No. Well, don't worry, because you're in good company. I haven't a clue either. Cheryl and Sean, I mean, how much do you collaborate and how much do you sort of stay very separate in terms of your teaching?
I would say we collaborate every single day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every day we would have conversations.
Yeah.
And whether that's in discrete subject areas or between Cheryl and I in terms of how to kind of manage departments, or even at this time of year when you're talking about SQA deadlines coming up and stuff, we have the ability to work together. And if you've got quick questions with each other, we're probably 20 steps away from each other in terms of how close we are in the corridor. So
right.
It's a wonderful opportunity we both have as two schools to be so close on the campus.
So just the kind of logistics of it, you're 20 steps away from each other. Yep. So the schools don't, have like two big doors and one goes to St Stephen's and one goes to Port Glasgow, no?
Some subjects are maybe down wings as such, but there are shared areas. For example, science, we actually share a lab as well. PE department, I know they have shared areas. Art has shared areas. So there's a number of subjects, home economics, technical, they all have shared areas where they can share the same equipment and share the same resources. And ultimately that leads to us having a better knowledge of even our own curriculum, because you can go and tap into the expertise in another area.
So it's of great benefit, Cheryl, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As a new member of staff here, it's been invaluable having somebody just along the corridor that I can turn to for help, reassurance, or even just having somebody on hand just to speak to. It's been really helpful in terms of settling in here.
That's interesting. So you're relatively new. So were you in a more kind of conventional setup before?
When I came here.
So what are the differences that you see then?
Well, being here, so obviously we have our own department and our own staff, and we would have meetings regularly and we would make our own decisions and discussions ourselves. But like we said, Sean's just on hand round the corner. It's very easy to pop in and to ask, how are you handling this? How is your department taking on board, whatever advice, how are things going? And it's a whole other set of expertise that you have available that you wouldn't have in other schools, other circumstances.
And another thing there is, if you're talking about a discrete subject area, so I'm a physics teacher, I can go to other members of Cheryl's department, and that's just an open door policy as such between all the departments up in science. And I know that happens across the campus, where you would say, can you help me with perhaps a tricky question like you've asked in your first three clues there as well. So we would be able to go and tap into expertise in other areas, which is really invaluable.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I'm so glad we came here today, I have to say, because, I mean, I had absolutely no knowledge of this kind of school setup. And it is really, well, it's not unique. We know there are around about 200 in Scotland, but they make up a very small proportion of the total. And it's thrown up such interesting kind of aspects to it. So to Corey and Sarah, do you two feel like you go to different schools or the same schools? I mean, one of you goes to Port Glasgow, one of you goes to St Stephen's. What does it feel like, Corey?
It's different in the sense of it's two different schools, but when you're sitting in the class, it's not as if it's like a completely new world you're going into. It just kind of roughly boils down into you're there with your teacher and you're learning about whatever subject it is. So I take PE, and whenever I sit down, I just feel like it's a normal class. It's not as if it's I feel like I'm invading, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just they've just taken me along and I feel welcomed. So it just all works out.
You take that at Port Glasgow High School, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though you're St Stephen's pupil, so.
Right. Oh, so you go over to...
Yeah, I go over to Port High when I'm in St Stephen's.
Ah, right. So how much of that goes on, Sarah, then, moving between the sort of schools?
It happens quite a lot. I take RMPS in St Stephen's.
Tell me what that is.
Religious, moral and philosophical studies.
Thank you.
So it's literally just a walk along the corridor, and it's easier because you're able to talk to the teachers the way you would in your own school and stuff like that. It's not as if you're far away from them. You use them it's the same pretty much.
So do you have a relationship with the teachers of the other school?
Yeah, definitely. They're like your own teacher. They become you become part of their school almost by doing the classes.
it's interesting what Gillian said earlier on about having pupils of the campus. I would see as many Port High pupils as St Stephen's pupils on a daily basis, and we both have, myself and Cheryl would have a kind of informal relationship with some other pupils, like how you get on in your boxing. There's a boy in first year at Port Glasgow High School who talks to me about boxing. I don't teach him at all, but we would have conversations about football and different things as well. So the young people have a kind of unique situation where they can have conversations that are informal with other members of staff, and that then allows them, when they get further up the school, we have, just to finish, they get further up the school and they already have at least a baseline of, we know who you are, we say good morning to you, and we're familiar. In the science, we have a situation where we offered a course this year for the first time, when we used Cheryl's expertise on that, to offer a course called Health Sector, and that was offered to half St Stephen's pupils and half Port Glasgow pupils. And what that allowed Port Glasgow High School to do was to teach the Health Sector course, while we split our National 5 biology course with half St Stephen's pupils and half Port Glasgow pupils, just to see that's something that happens in other areas of the school as well, but that was something unique to science that we have offered this year and has been successful.
Is there any competition between the schools?
I would say yes, of course there is. Everybody wants to do their best, and I can see two head teachers sitting together there as well, smiling, but I'll be sure when they both want to give an excellent impression of their own school, but I know that myself and Cheryl both fight for the people of Port Glasgow and surrounding areas as well.
What about in sport, Corey, then, if you're a PE guy? Is there competition there?
There is competition, but it's mainly just banter. It's not as if it's, oh, you've done worse than me, that means Port High's better, or I've done better than you, that means St Stephen's better. It is just people be just winding each other up. It's not as if it's...
Yeah, well, there's always competition in sport.
Competition. It's always competition in sport, but it's not as if it's serious. It's not as if it's like, I'm going to batter you because you've done better than me.
That takes me back. And will you guys see Matthew around as well? Matthew on...
Yeah, definitely. We see Craig Mullock share a canteen with us, so we see most pupils on a regular basis. You could probably point out most people and be like, oh, I've seen them about before. I know a lot of St Stephen's pupils through doing consortium, and I know a lot of Craig Mullock ones just through seeing them about the school.
Yeah. Is it a good place to be, Matthew?
Yeah.
Yeah, you enjoy it, yeah?
Yeah.
I think, was it Olivia who said that Port Glasgow's got the best uniform? Is this true?
No.
I thought I'd just give you the final word there. Listen, thank you very much, everyone. I think we're a wee bit late for the news. I do apologise for that, but we'll be back after Christine Finnegan.
The news at 11 o'clock, just after 11. The First Minister says many reports made about alleged hate crimes have been vexatious. It follows the introduction of a controversial hate crime law earlier this month, which saw thousands of complaints made to the police. The Conservatives are calling for it to be scrapped. Humza Yousaf rejected that. He's been speaking to Good Morning Scotland.
What we have seen with the introduction of the Hate Crime Act in the first week, in the first few days in particular, was a series, I think, of bad faith actors who decided to put in vexatious complaints, a number of vexatious complaints, in order to try to waste the police time, which is a pretty serious matter.
Mr Yousaf also said recommendations on gender care in England made in the Cass Review last week are being given consideration. Among a range of findings, the review said there isn't enough evidence on puberty blockers. And in the run-up to publication, the NHS in England announced they'd no longer be routinely prescribed. There are calls for that to be mirrored here. Professor Sir Chris Whitty, England's Chief Medical Officer during the COVID pandemic, has given his support to the UK government's proposed phased ban on smoking. The law will ensure that anyone turning 15 from this year will be banned from buying cigarettes. Although health is a devolved matter in Scotland, agreement's been reached by all administrations across the UK for a four-nation approach. Police in Australia say a stabbing at a church in Sydney was a terrorist act. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested after a bishop and several churchgoers were attacked at a Syrian Orthodox church. Our correspondent in Sydney is Phil Mercer.
The service was being live streamed at the time, and the video shows an individual calmly walking towards the altar before unleashing what appears to be a frenzied knife attack on the bishop. So a very significant incident in Western Sydney that is being treated as a terrorist incident.
Fires engulfed one of Denmark's most historic buildings, the 17th century stock exchange building in Copenhagen. A twisted spire on the roof has toppled. Passers-by helped remove artefacts from the building. The site was covered with scaffolding for renovation works. Businessman Hal Hardwick is in Copenhagen.
It's a very significant building right in the centre of Copenhagen. People are very, very fond of it. It's a beautiful building. And yes, it takes back 400 years, and it's the old Danish stock exchange. It's a very significant building. There's quite a lot of sadness.
The Olympic flame has been lit during a ceremony at the ancient site of Olympia in Greece, ahead of this year's Games in Paris. The flame will travel around Greece before being taken to France by ship at the beginning of May. It stays lit for the entirety of the Games to represent the values of the Olympics. Sport now, and here's Phil Goodlad.
Christine, thank you. A pitch inspection is taking place right now at Dines Park to determine whether Dundee's match with Rangers can go ahead tomorrow night. The game has already been postponed twice due to the state of the pitch. St Johnstone's McDermott Park is on the standby to host the game if Dines is ruled out once more. Talking of Scottish football news, you can get plenty more at the Daily Football Podcast, which is looking at Lewis Ferguson's injury blow for Scotland ahead of the Euros this summer, and on Nathan Patterson hobbling off last night in Everton's defeat at Chelsea. The Scotland defender looked like he had a hamstring problem. There's been no official word as yet from his club, Everton. The swimmers who will compete for Team GB at this summer's Olympic Games in Paris will be named in an hour's time, the announcement being made at Stirling University. Sponsors of rugby's British and Irish Lions women's team are to fund a £3 million initiative aiming to ensure their historic first tour will not be solely made up of English players. And the former Australian batter Michael Slater has been refused bail and remanded in custody over domestic violence charges. 54-year-old Slater faces 19 charges relating to alleged offences that's taken place over the last 5 months. Christine, back to you.
Thank you, and some travel news. You can expect delays because of poor hillside conditions on the A83 Rest and Be Thankful in Cairndow. From Arica to the Rest and Be Thankful viewpoint, the diversion's in place via the old military road. In Greenock, Clinder Road is closed from Cardross Crescent to Cardross Place because of an accident, and an investigation by the police has closed Sinclair Road in Torry, going west from Mansfield Road to Victoria Road. Scotland's weather. A chilly north to northwesterly airflow maintaining a feed of showers today, chiefly in the north, with the odd one drifting through central and southern areas. For many, though, it'll be a dry day with some brightness and sunshine. Highs of 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, 10 or 11 at best in the south. And that's BBC Radio Scotland News.
Tuesday. Christine, they've let me out.
Oh, isn't it nice? It sounds nice. Are you all excited?
Yes.
The question is, are they letting you back in, Kay?
No, I think I'm being kept back for detention.
Do you need to
Bad
bring me back
behaviour,
a postcard or a stock of rock or something from Port Glasgow?